Hello, folks!
Welcome to Present Tenses. We're starting a new series tonight, and this series is going to be all about
Game of Thrones.
We've been huge fans for a long time, separately and together. Back when we used to live in Louisville, we would have Game of Thrones nights, and we would have our friends over, and we'd drink wine and watch the show, and then talk for hours afterward, analyzing everything that we had just seen. Since we can't do that with our friends back in Louisville now, we decided that we would share our ramblings with you. And so what you'll see in this time where we're talking about Game of Thrones is one, we'll just do a quick recap. So just so you know, there will be a lot of spoilers, and we'll be talking about everything that happened in the show. Then we'll have a series of a thumbs up and a thumbs down, where we give two of our favorite moments and two of our not so favorite moments, or different things about the show that we liked and didn't like. And then we'll be giving awards similar to what we do with the Bachelorette, but you'll notice they'll be a little bit different this series. And then we'll end with some predictions that we have for what's to come in the rest of the season. So we're going to be starting off with a recap for episode 1, season 7. And while I talk about what happened during the show, Chris is going to try not to blink.
I'm ready when you are.
All right, so here we go. So the first part of this episode started off with...
Oh, I already blinked.
What?
Hang on, I'm going to try.
Oh my gosh, we're going to start all over again. So the first part of this episode
started with one of my favorite scenes, and basically we have, oh my gosh, I forgot his name.
Walder Frey.
Frey, oh my gosh, I was going to say Walter too. We start off with Walder Frey, and at the end of last season we thought he was dead, but he's talking to all of his people, or all of his soldiers, and his wife and daughters and women are around, and it's very confusing, especially since it's been so long since we've watched it. At the end of his little speech, everyone cheers and starts to drink, and they all start dying. And then we realize that it's actually Arya who had taken his face, and she was doing this as justice to the North for what they did to her family. So that's what we start off with. Then we have the epic music, and then we see the White Walkers, and we realize that they have giants. So that was another huge piece that we saw. Some of the other things that come up during this is a conversation between Jaime and Cersei, when Cersei is cold and she's not really, she wants to take over the world for herself and for Jaime, and so we're seeing that she doesn't really, she cares that her son had just died, or killed himself, but she's getting colder and colder hearted. Probably one of my favorite parts in the episode, besides of course Arya, is when we find ourselves at Winterfell, and Jon is talking to all the people of the North, trying to plot out a plan to fight these White Walkers, and we've got little, oh my gosh, I'm so bad with names, there's so many characters. Did we write it down?
Lyanna Mormont.
Lyanna Mormont.
Lady Lyanna Mormont.
And so we have her, which she was a big, she came out last season and everybody loved her, so she has some dialogue. We start to get an idea of the relationship between Jon and Sansa, and it was just really cool to see that happen. And then also, there's a lot that happens. We see Arya.
Really bad.
I guess next we saw Sam, and he is at the Citadel now, and basically his life is cleaning up poop and serving soup, so it's all about the liquids. But he also gets a little sneak into some of the literature and the books that he wants to see, and he finds out about Dragonstone and how they can, how it houses a lot of the ice, what is it called?
Dragon glass?
Dragon glass. I can't want to say Dragonstone. The dragon glass that is supposed to fight the White Walkers. And then we see, what's his name?
Which guy? Who?
That comes to Cersei.
Jamie? Oh,
No.
Euron Greyjoy.
Euron
Or something like
Greyjoy.
that?
Mr. Greyjoy. Come to Cersei and try to, win her hand and give her his fleet so that she can fight Daenerys. But she wants a gift from him, and her and Jaime exchange some smirks when he asks for her hand. And so he leaves to go get her a gift. And then we see a little bit about how the... oh my my gosh. And so, the Hound. And we get a little bit of insight and love and empathy for him. And toward the end of the show, I guess, we have a few little surprises that we'll mention later in our predictions and how we think it's all going to come to play. But at the very end, they end up Daenerys and Tyrion and her whole posse end up at Dragonstone. She goes and sees the throne of her family that she has been working toward getting since we first started watching the show, really, and so since the show started, and so it ends in this really beautiful way of her going back to her homeland.
So that's a kind of a little recap. I'm sure I missed a lot of details and a lot of specifics there, like Ed Sheeran, but we'll talk about him in a little bit too. So that's what happened this episode, and Chris, you can blink. Did you blink at all?
I didn't blink it. I didn't blink once.
Yeah, you did.
I blinked a lot of times. I may have blinked many
eyes are
times,
really
but
bloodshot,
man, that was hard. No, that was hard.
I bet it was.
So,
I'm proud of you.
thank you. I'm proud of you. That was a good recap. So, moving next into our next segment, it is. In this segment, every week we're going to choose 2 thumbs up moments, 2 thumbs down moments, and tell you about those. These aren't just about characters or people, could be storyline, could be plot twist, could be whatever we want to talk about, but 2 thumbs up, 2 thumbs down. The first thumbs up, do you want to talk about it? Or do you want
I think you should talk about this. You feel very passionately about
I'm
it.
excited about this one. And this, I feel like in many ways, is not going to be news to anybody who's watching this. And it is the whole Song of Fire and Ice and Fire concept. Now, anybody who watched the show or has read the books knows that that's the series name, Song of Ice and Fire. Ice likely representing everything that happens north of the Wall, and then fire being all things dragon and Dragonstone and Daenerys Targaryen, all things Targaryen, really. As we watched this episode in particular, we saw a lot of focus on Dragonstone, the island that is isn't that what's called, Dragonstone? Yeah, the island that Daenerys Targaryen has in her lineage. It's the island of the Targaryens. On that island, Sam finds out in the Citadel.
I was yawning, so I smacked myself.
Oh, Sam finds out in his time in the Citadel that there's a whole mountain full of dragon glass. Now we know that dragon glass is the only thing, I can put my glasses back on, I guess, is the only thing that can kill the White Walkers. And it actually killed them because they are already dead. Now, there doesn't seem to be that much dragon glass just floating around, but the interesting thing that Sam does find out is that because on Dragonstone they have just a surplus of it that they've been able to mine, they use it for decoration and for jewelry and for things like that. In this episode, we saw, as Megan mentioned, the Army of the Dead, and it includes giants. Now, we saw just all the havoc that one giant can have in a battle in the last season, as the people from the Wall and the Wildlings had the giant on their side. We could only imagine what an army of giants could do.
An army of White Walker giants.
Dead White Walker giants. That would be insane.
And I wonder what could actually fight them that's in this world.
I wonder if a dragon could fight them. Or
Maybe.
3 dragons. So, we're starting to kind of see this ice and fire kind of come together in a little bit more of a finalized way, which I think is really exciting. We have Jon, who knows that he needs particular tools to fight against the Army of the Dead, and we're starting to learn more about where he can get those tools. And of course, the people that are housing the island where those tools are the Targaryen army,
Fire.
and the entirety of the Fire team, which is exciting.
On top of it, the island is in the southeast in Westeros, and the White Walkers are coming from the north. So that even plays into like the hot south, what's warmer, and then the cold north.
It's cool to see the
Lots of it.
storyline develop. It's cool all the ways they're just tying in these little tiny pieces based on that idea of the Song of Ice and Fire. I really like that storytelling. I think it's been really a pleasure to see.
Our first thumbs down is the dialogue in this first episode. I mean, there were a few good exchanges and a few memorable quotes, but overall, there's a lot of cheese and a lot of just very obvious dialogue, and you could tell that, this was the first season where it was fully the writers, and George R. R. Martin didn't really have anything to do with this, and so you could kind of tell it just didn't have that like oomph, that kind of intellectual level.
Yeah, it wasn't as believable. It felt too modern in a way.
Yeah, there was just something about it that just didn't quite feel like anything else that we've seen, and so we were disappointed in the dialogue.
Yeah. Our second thumbs up is the whole storyline of Samwell Tarly. It's been great to watch him from the Wall all the way to the Citadel and see all of his character development the entire way. We've been rooting for him the whole time. He's just a big old teddy bear. We absolutely love him, and it's really cool to see that he got the chance to kind of pursue this dream he's had of being a maester. He's talked about it the entire time that we've known him, and now he gets to be in the Citadel, which is something that people like him don't really get to do, and he gets to learn and get these opportunities, and even in that, we see him doing really terrible stuff, and stuff that he probably wouldn't have expected to do. You can tell he's not overly happy, and he feels the urgency of having to fulfill why he's there in the first place, but doesn't necessarily feel that in response from the people in the Citadel itself. And in fact, you could tell that he seems pretty frustrated with the other maesters' responses to the urgency that he's feeling, and how they're almost blind to the way the world really works outside of those walls. And the irony of that doesn't seem to be lost on Sam, that these are the people that are supposed to be the wisest people in all of this world and all of Westeros, but they seem so blind to what's actually happening out in this world. Yeah. So it's been really fun to watch Sam's storyline develop. It's been really exciting to see him start to take a different kind of control over his life, take a different kinds of confidence. I mean, it was always interesting to see how he balanced that against Jon back at the Wall, and he's really kind of developing his own strength, and I love to watch it.
I feel like he needed to get away from Jon because he depended on Jon's strength, but he was able to garner some of that from Jon and really learn from him. Yeah. And so you can tell that he's like breaking some rules on his own now to get the books and the information that he needs, to save the world, basically.
It's true.
So, and his little boy has really grown up too. That was cute to see. So our second thumbs down is Cersei, and I'm probably right in saying this probably won't be the only time that Cersei gets a thumbs down. Yeah. But specifically in this episode, it was a couple of things, but one of it was just her blindness. How she's just so oblivious to what is happening in the world around her, and all she wants is to get that throne and to be the queen,
to just be in control,
and to be in control, but like there's nobody there for her to like continue the control. Like she doesn't have any heirs, and it was really interesting because when they were having this conversation, when she was talking about this, Jamie was like, "Well, why do you want this? Who do you want this for?" Mm-hmm. And she was basically just like, "For us, for me and you," and he was like, it's just like, who else is left? It's just us. Yeah. And so it just seems very blind to anything else, like this bigger picture of the White Walkers and kind of who Daenerys really is and how much of a threat she actually is to Cersei, and not just this thing that Cersei thinks she can just beat. Yeah. And it seems kind of like she's hardening and getting even scarier. So.
And I feel like it was also really interesting, like Jamie started off in the entire show being way worse than her, and over time he's gotten more and more seems like empathetic to the rest of the world that he's a part of, which is interesting to watch. And I feel like we definitely saw that some in this episode in particular, where Cersei at one point in time mentioned, "We're the rulers of the Seven Kingdoms," and Jamie's response was like, "It's more like 3 at best right now," you know? And so it's cool to see that this guy is the captain of the Kingsguard. He's before he became a Kingsguard member, he was the heir to the throne. He should have more stake or as much stake in all of this as Cersei. And you can tell that he even said, I think he said something about maybe not being on the right side. Maybe I'm thinking of a different television show. feel like I'm thinking about something else.
I don't remember
I'm thinking
hearing
about
that.
something else. But you can definitely tell that
he's
Jamie's
reluctant.
wary.
He's reluctant to go along with it. But he loves her, so he will, I'm sure.
And she's scary.
And she's scary. He
All right.
can kill her, though.
Yeah, he can.
But then there's the mountain, so.
That's true. Now
Okay.
on to our next segment,
So we're
which
done with our
is-
thumbs up and thumbs down. So our my hand just slid. So our next segment are the awards. Excuse me.
Take us away,
I
baby.
got excited. Okay, so we have a little bit of a different grouping of awards than we do with our Bachelorette series or our Bachelor Nation series. But you'll see some of our favorites from that one as well. But the first award that we want to give out is the most badass.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
as you guys know, as GOT fans, there's a lot of badass moments that happen
Oh, yeah.
on the show.
Lots of badass.
So ours this week goes to Lady Leona Mormont. Did I say that right?
I think so.
Okay. And specifically in one of the first scenes there where they have all of the leaders of the North, and John is planning with them on who and how everyone can work together to combat the White Walkers that are coming because winter is finally here. And so he suggests that they're going to need not just half of the people that live in these areas, but they're going to need everybody, the men, the women, the a little bit older children, to be mining the dragon glass, as weapons to fight the White Walkers.
Well, and also
and
learning
to
to
fight
fight.
the White
Yeah.
Walkers. Yes, I was getting to that.
Sorry.
And to fight the White Walkers. And there were a couple of older men, as people that are set in their ways tend to be. It was like, well, we're not going to have women fighting and learning how to. What did he say? I can't remember exactly what he said. But Lady Mormont, stood up to him and said, "We don't want our ladies netting fires." I think is what she said. She said, "We want them, everybody, to be fighting and to stand up for themselves." And she's just this little girl, and she said it with such so articulately and with such passion
confidence.
and confidence that the old man was just like, okay.
Yeah.
And John was just like, thank you.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because she's just this little kid, and she always has, like, her character always has the best lines, the strongest lines, the most, like, feminist lines.
She's so cool.
And she's just super cool, and so that's why this week she gets the most badass.
It's probably not going to be the last time she gets the most badass because she rules. And if we were doing this last season, she would have gotten it several times then, too. She was cool. So that goes into our second award, which is also a new one for this show, which is the Most Likely to Die award. If you watch Game of Thrones frequently, you know there's always somebody who's on the edge of dying
No matter who
within
they
the pretty soon future. Now, in this one, it's probably pretty clear.
It's just a
We're
joke.
guessing that the next people to die are going to be Ed Sheeran and his jolly little crew of military
Backup.
minstrels.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Or as I refer to them, Ed and his Sheeran.
and Sheeran's. So as you may remember, Arya is running away from I guess she's leaving Walder Frey's area, and she runs across a beautiful sounding voice out in the woods. And who else would it be but Ed Sheeran?
Da 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 da.
And don't get us wrong, we love Ed Sheeran. It was a little bit weird to see him in this. We didn't care that
Especially
much though because we love him
singing.
so much. Yeah, it was a little on the
It's just-
nose,
I
but
mean, I don't think
you know,
it was
whatever.
It was him. He did fine. I think though it again kind of plays to that whole dialogue
Yeah,
and writing.
they didn't even try to hide. They didn't put a
No.
beard on him. They didn't put a hat on him. They didn't even try to hide it. But if you watch TV, you've seen Ed Sheeran in a couple other things. He was also showed up in The Bastard Executioner for a couple episodes. I think he just likes these kinds of shows. He's a Maisie Williams who plays Arya.
Yeah. So he and Maisie is like a huge fan of his, and they've met just like a couple of times and tweeted back and forth. But since they really started this show, the producers have wanted to surprise Maisie and have Ed Sheeran on the show. This is all according to a BuzzFeed article, but
So
they
it's
wanted
true.
to. So it's definitely fact. And so they wanted Ed Sheeran to be on or wanted to surprise Maisie with Ed Sheeran, and this was when they decided to do that. He got a lot of crap from people about it, and he has since deleted his Twitter account.
We would expect that he's probably going to die pretty soon. They are kind of out in a little roving band to figure out who it was that killed the Freys anyways. Little do they know that it's the girl that just joined their company. Things are not looking too up for them. So we're just going to go ahead and say Ed Sheeran, and by proxy, all the rest of the little Sheeranites are probably going to die out there somewhere. So what's next?
Yes. So the next one is All the Feels. This is one we have from the Bachelor ones. And, as you know, sometimes All the Feels is something that is really just heartwarming. Sometimes it's really, really sad. This week we're giving All the Feels to Sansa. As you know, Sansa has gone through so much since the beginning of these stories. And it was really heartwarming to see her. It is really heartwarming to see her character become the strong woman. Like, she didn't let these awful things get her down and prevent her from continuing forward and fighting. She's taken these different pieces and have really utilized them to become very insightful and smart and confident, which is interesting. And so in this episode, she was sitting next to Jon when he was talking to all the leaders of the North, and they wanted him to take the castles and the land from these people that have fought against him, or against the Starks. And it was great to see Jon not give in because they were young and they were kids, and it was this other whole part of the story. But Sansa was really standing up to him and was saying, no, they were fighting against us. We need to show them. But eventually she realized that it wasn't necessarily her place to be saying that, so she stepped back a little, and then she was able to have not let her emotions get in the way, and have a very productive conversation with Jon later about how, she still believed that it wasn't necessarily the right choice, but that, he's an amazing leader and that he really had those great qualities. And so she's insightful about how to handle Littlefinger, and I just feel like her character is really exhibiting a good mix of Catelyn and Ned.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just neat to see her finally becoming a woman that I really like, because I didn't always like Sansa, but the more the seasons go on, the more she is really becoming a strong character that you can get behind. And so it was good to just kind of see that, and just in general to see kind of the siblings getting back together and working to take their families' land and then protect the world.
So the last award that we have goes to the...
Well, you didn't give the... Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say goes to, and I was like, you didn't even say what the award was.
Our last award goes to the person that we felt had the biggest twist in this episode. Biggest storyline twist. And for that person, for us, this episode was... Arya! And this was such a cool twist. Now, we've followed her storyline for a while, and she's had kind of like peaks and valleys, man. Like, she's had some rough times and some good times. But all in all, it didn't really seem like she was, progressing that much. And it seemed like it was kind of bothering her, too, in the last season. The people that were teaching her about the Faceless God even kept saying, you are not Arya Stark anymore. You are a person of no name. And that, she fought against that the whole time, because her whole thing now is, I will avenge my family. Mm-hmm. I am a Stark. And I love that. I mean, that literally sends cold chills down my spine. Mm-hmm. I think it's so cool. And so I love that this season starts off with Walder Frey seemingly killing his entire military, more or less. Every man that reports to him, killing them all. Incredible. And sparing the wives. And then Walder Frey takes off his face, takes off his mask, and it's Arya. And that is so cool, because that means a couple things. One, Arya killed Walder Frey.
Which we kind of knew. We saw it happen.
Yeah. Which was awesome. Mm-hmm. So, killed Walder Frey. And then she knew enough about how to do this, because when she left the temple in the last season, we weren't really sure like what exactly she knew and didn't know. We didn't know what she was armed with necessarily in terms of knowledge. She knew enough to execute the whole like taking on somebody else's face, mask, persona, everything. Then she poisoned all of the wine these people were drinking, and she killed all of these people. She gave this dope-ass speech as she was doing the whole thing. She took off the face, and then she broke the rule of what all these faceless people does, and she essentially said, like, this was for the North. Like, tell them winter is coming, this is from Winterfell, essentially. And she pretty much just, like, stuck her flag in the ground and was like, this is a Stark move. And it was cool. It was a really cool twist to see Arya take so much power and kind of show that she does have this, like, dangerous skill. And we did not see it coming at all. Like
we were like, I thought she killed him.
Yeah.
Why is he still alive?
And then we were like, why is he
not...
killing everybody? This is weird. Like, we didn't get it.
And then as more of them started dying, I was like, that might be Arya.
We were both like, oh my god, what if that's Arya? And then when it was, we were like, oh. And then she just like walked out of the, she just like walked right out of the house. She literally just walked out of the city because she killed everybody. Oh, it was so cool. Great twist. Great writing. That was cool.
Twist.
Twist.
I feel like that's from like a movie. Twist.
That's from the same movie where Jamie said, I feel like we're on the wrong side.
No. It's like, I feel like it's like something Schmidt would say. Or maybe it's like from New Girl or something.
That sounds like a Schmidtism.
I don't know.
Okay, so that leads us into our final segment of this show for this episode, which are our
predictions.
Do you want to start off on the predictions?
I think you should.
Okay. Do you want to do this one? The second one?
Yes.
So
they all kind of go together, though.
They do kind of go together. I'll funnel into you. That sounds gross. Okay, so we talked a minute ago about the whole fire and ice situation. So we have a prediction, and this is probably the exact same prediction you have, that Daenerys Targaryen and Jon Snow are going to end up together. Like, that's not a surprise at all. I mean, we already know that Jon Snow is partially Targaryen anyways. If you didn't know that, you haven't been watching closely enough, because they pretty much literally told you. Last season? 2 seasons ago?
That was last season.
They literally told you. So Jon Snow is partially Targaryen anyways.
I may have been 2 seasons.
Okay, so let's recap just in case you don't know. So we always thought he was the bastard son of Ned Stark, right? Who was the honorable caretaker of the North. Now, Ned Stark was killed. We didn't really get to know too much more about Jon's heritage. What we did find out, though, through a series of Bran's flashbacks, his like little seeing journeys, is that Ned Stark's sister actually had an affair, and you'll remember Ned Stark's sister was married to Robert, the guy, Robert Baratheon, in the very first season, was killed by a boar / Cersei.
Robert Baratheon was killed by a boar, not his sister.
So, his wife, Robert Baratheon's wife, is Ned Stark's sister, who is impregnated by some Targaryen prince, I don't remember his name, while they were at war. And she was in love with him. She was like, it was an affair.
Yeah, it wasn't like she was raped or like there was like something that happened. Like it was a love child.
Now, she died while she was giving birth, and so she entrusted Ned with the secret that this was the heir to the throne and a Targaryen child, not a Baratheon. And so Ned, needing to keep that secret safe, took Jon back with him to Winterfell and essentially convinced everybody this was a bastard son that he had while he was at war, and then took under his wing. So Jon has lived his entire life thinking that he is a bastard son. He still thinks he's a bastard son. He doesn't know that he's Targaryen. Yeah, he is. It's true. But he has no idea that he's Targaryen. Daenerys Targaryen is now arriving at Dragonstone, which is where all that dragon glass is, and it's this perfect cacophony of awesome things. where Samwell Tarly is starting to find out that there's this mountain, literally a mountain full of mineable dragon glass, which happens to be the only thing that Jon Snow can use to kill the army of the dead, and it's at Dragonstone, this enormous island that is the home to the Targaryens. Now, we'll go into something else about that that's interesting in a second, but we think that Samwell is going to make his way back from the Citadel to let Jon know that he needs to get his little tuckus down there to Dragonstone and start to get some of that dragon glass, mine some of that dragon glass, create weapons from it, bring it back to the wall so the army is armed and ready to roll. Now, as a part of that, he's going to meet Daenerys Targaryen. We don't think he's going to fall in love with her. They're not going to get married right away. They both seem pretty focused on what they need to do, but it's going to be a powerhouse meeting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do think at some point in time they're going to end up getting married. I do think Daenerys Targaryen is going to end up on the Iron Throne, not Jon Snow. But I do think they're going to end up getting together, and they're going to work together to defeat the army of the dead. I think before they fight Cersei. I think that's my prediction. I mean, Cersei still has to get all the ships and then make their way back down to Dragonstone. She doesn't even really have that much of an army. On the flip side, Daenerys Targaryen has an enormous army, and honestly, the army of the dead is making their way down.
I think that's just going to be kind of a blip. I almost think that it could potentially be that happens before, and
like a battle with Cersei's army.
Yeah, and then that's what brings Jon. Like Jon and them are going there anyway to get the. I think that it's all going to kind of come at a head.
That would be intense.
Where like Cersei and them are coming, and then Jon and them are coming to, request to use the Dragonstone.
And he just
or
kind of saves
the
them.
glass, and then they end up fighting and saving. Like I think that's
a cool idea.
That's what's going to happen.
Because Jon does have
and then
several
that's what's
armies.
going to unite them, and that's what's going to be like. Or he's going to be like, I can help you have these armies.
Yeah.
And these different people that are my supporters. I can help you beat Cersei if you help me save the world.
Yeah.
Because I think that it would be very easy. Like, I don't think Jon wants to be like the king of the world. Like, I think he would easily be like,
we totally fun staying at the wall.
yeah, or he'd easily be like, yes, Dany, you rule the world, and I'll just go be Lord of Winterfell. He's not like a power-hungry kind of person.
Not at all.
He just wants there to be a world and people. So,
Yeah.
I think that could potentially be something that happens. That's
agree.
another. I keep brainstorming different ways of how this is all going to connect.
Well, and there's another important way that you think these are going to connect.
Yes, and I had this other idea earlier. So one of the twists that we debated on, and which we haven't talked about at all yet, really is that the end of the episode, Sam is going to feed all of these people that are at the Citadel. They're people we hadn't seen yet. They're all kind of behind closed doors. And he's going to hand food, and this hand comes out and kind of like doesn't grab him, but kind of like hits the food over and gets his attention. And it ends up being, and we see the hand, and it's just covered in grayscale, and it's Jorah. And he asks about Dany, and what did he say exactly?
Did he ask if she was at Dragonstone?
I think so.
That sounds right.
I'm not sure. He said something about Dany. And
I feel like he said, like, has she arrived yet? Like, it wasn't even like...
Yeah.
But I feel like she's not going to the Citadel, so I wonder if he was essentially saying, like...
I can't remember if that's even what he said. So, yes. Anyway. So I had this thought that, Sam will continue to talk to Jorah and will bring him with him to Jon and then to Dragonstone because, Dany loves him. And also, Chris brought up the point that the dragon glass that's on the sword that Jon Snow is using is actually Jorah's father's.
So you'll remember from the last couple of seasons, Stannis Baratheon has been occupying Dragonstone, the old Targaryen stronghold. He took it over in his many wars to make his way towards the Iron Throne and has been holding it for a long, long time. Now, he abandoned it because the Red Woman told him that he needed to go to Winterfell. And that's why it's empty, which is why Daenerys Targaryen found it. Now, you'll also remember that Stannis Baratheon's daughter has grayscale. Had grayscale.
That was all the feels most of the entire show.
Oh, that was so painful to watch.
Yes.
But why is that important?
I was reading another article about the fact that she's one of the only people that has been able to survive, kind of like stop the effects of grayscale and then continue to survive. So it's just kind of never got to the way that it is with Jorah right now in his hand, and it was just, kind of a little bit on her face and stuff. And so there's prediction that dragon glass is, in the book that Sam was reading about dragon glass, it said that it also had like medicinal and medicinal effects. That's not the word I was going to say. And like healing potential. And so the idea is that Stannis' daughter, because they lived there, was able to benefit from those, and that's why she, of anybody else, was able to combat grayscale. And so Jorah may know that, and Sam just read about that.
It's kind of cool.
And so it may be that that's another reason why I can't remember what I got so distracted.
Like that's the reason why Sam's gonna bring Jorah back, and Jorah may end up being kind of like a peace offering back to.
Yeah, and then could get better, and could be a reason why they'd start mining it too.
I like that idea a lot. Another interesting thing too is we just saw Bran finally make his way to the Wall, which is awesome because we've been hoping he'd get there eventually for a pretty long time. Another thing we've talked about, because these are all different ways that Jon and Daenerys may finally meet. The whole Jorah situation makes so much sense that he wants to get to Dragonstone. Sam wants to get him to Dragonstone. They each want to get there for different reasons, and there's a kinship between Jorah and Daenerys that provides value to her from Jon's perspective. Another opportunity is, what if Bran, who can see towards the future, who's kind of the new like far-seeing individual after the old guy died, the old guy in the tree.
What's the word they use for it?
I don't remember.
It's not oracle. There's a word.
I don't remember what the word was. He kept calling the guy the Raven, but that's not.
No, there's.
That's not what the word was.
Yeah.
But now that Bran essentially took over that role, I'm almost wondering if he foresees Cersei attacking Daenerys at Dragonstone and things not looking that good for Daenerys at Dragonstone. And so he prompts Jon and potentially Sam and Jorah, or maybe Sam and Jorah happen to stumble upon them at Dragonstone, some collision thereof. I wonder if Bran's going to prompt Jon to bring his armies to Daenerys' aid as somebody who can see a whole lot further into the future and know more information than anybody else can, so that Jon and his armies can go defeat Cersei and the rest of the Targaryen, or the rest of the Lannister army, and then that's the way that he comes to the aid of Daenerys, and they can collect the weapons, go back to the Wall, defeat the dead. So those are our predictions. All right, that was all of our different segments.
Yeah. So, what predictions do you have for this coming season, and what were some of your favorite parts of this first episode?
Yeah, and then be sure to give this video a thumbs up. It helps us get more views from people like you and more lovers of the show, so we can keep talking about these ridiculous things and having so much fun. It gives you more stuff to watch. And then don't forget to also subscribe to this channel to see more videos like this. We'll be doing them every single week to recap, and
for
it'll
Game
follow.
of Thrones and other shows.
Exactly.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, you're fine, babe. if you're into The Bachelorette, I'm sure you've seen those two on our channel. We'll be doing these for Game of Thrones continuously, and then perhaps even picking up for Walking Dead.
Perhaps.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
All right, that's it.
Mhm.
You ready?
Yeah.
Thank you all. We love you. We'll talk to you soon.
I love
Bye, folks.